Man, is what we're going to you here on newspunch. We give you the information that you need, from business to economy to politics to technology. And that's all we do here on newspunch, from the beginning to the end. And that is why we are Ben. Keep watching newspunch from Ben Television. And today, I'll be your host. Welcome to newspunch, coming to you live from Ben Television. My name is Tunde Alabi. It's a pleasure having you on the program today. On the show, we'll be taking a look at the future of the Labour Party under the new leadership of Jeremy Corbyn, who is popularly known to be pro-socialist and indeed a left-winger. Of course, prior to the election of Jeremy Corbyn, he came under serious attack, from the Blairites, and even Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown and Tony Blair did say that Labour will become unelectable for a very long time if Jeremy Corbyn were to be elected. Fortunately for Jeremy Corbyn, he secured almost 60% of the total votes of the people at the convention, the last convention, and he became the most popular candidate and the most popularly elected candidate of all the three of them, Liz Kendall, Viet Cooper, and Bonham. And Jeremy Corbyn became the leader of the Labour Party. Tonight, we'll be taking a look at the future of Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn. My guest in the studio is a political and social analyst who will be joining us to review the situation as it concerns the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn. We're taking a look at the future. In fact, we'll start with the past, the present, and the future of Jeremy Corbyn. Well, a man who has been at the backbench for the greater part of his career in the parliament. An MP for Islington who is generally respected and loved by a few for his left-wing policy. Let's quickly go to this video clip report I'm going to present to you. And when we come back, I'll be presenting my guest who is in the studio today, Sam Foxman, a social and a political analyst who is the director of Developed Africa, an organization that looks at investments from UK to Africa. Let's cross to the other side and let's watch and listen to this report. Thereafter, we'll be looking at Jeremy Corbyn and Labour Party and the future of Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn. Don't go away.
We're coming through, sorry!
That was the moment Jeremy Corbyn walked into the last Labour conference hall as just an MP for Islington before he walked out as the Labour Party leader. The leadership contest followed Labour's dismal performance at the 2015 election and the resignation of his leader, Ed Miliband. 4 candidates contested the top Labour Party job and the Bonham.
He's been the MP for Lee in Greater Manchester since 2001. He was in Gordon Brown's cabinet and is now the Shadow Health Secretary. 68 of his MP colleagues have given him their backing. Yvette Cooper has been the Castleford MP for nearly 20 years and was also in the cabinet under Gordon Brown. Currently, she's the Shadow Home Secretary, and 59 MPs support her for leader. Liz Kendall, the 44-year-old MP for Leicester West, is also a member of Labour's health team. She has the least experience in Parliament, but she received 41 nominations. And lastly, Jeremy Corbyn, the 66-year-old who's represented Islington North since 1983. He's a member of the Socialist Campaign Group, and as a backbencher, he just sneaked onto the ballot paper with 36 nominations.
Of the 4, Mr. Corbyn got the least nominations from Labour MPs and was a dark horse. Known for his opposition to most government policies and those from his party as well, Mr. Corbyn was in the backbench for a greater part of his career in the parliament, a staunch left-winger and a pro-socialist. Mr. Corbyn received a massive 59.5% votes to become Labour leader.
I had a very long conversation with Ed a couple of days ago, and I thanked him for his work as leader of the party. I thanked him for his work as Environment Secretary and somebody who's passionate about defending the world's environment against the way it's being destroyed at the present time. But I also thanked him for the way in which he stood up to the abuse that he received by much of our media. And the dignity he showed when his late father, the great Ralph Miliband, was so brutally abused by some of our media. So, Ed, thank you for all of that. I want to thank the fellow leadership candidates. We're discussing the number, whether it's 29, 35 or 39 hustings we've been to together since this election started. We'll discuss that later and exchange diaries. But it's been a fascinating experience for all of us. And I want to thank them for the way the debates were conducted, the way that we were able to put forward political debate and political differences and still come out at the end of it with a group hug. We're going to reform ourselves as an ABBA tribute band and continue this work in the future. Andy Burnham was our Health Secretary, and Andy's passion and determination for a national health service as a human right, free at the point of use, is something that comes over every time Andy speaks. And his passion for comprehensive education to ensure all children have a reasonable, fair and decent start in life. I want to say thank you to Yvette Cooper for all the work she's done in government and in the party, but in particular over the past few weeks, helping to shape and turn round public opinion to show sympathy and humanity towards refugees and the way they're treated. And one of my first acts as the leader of the party will be to go to the demonstration this afternoon to show support for the way refugees must be treated and should be treated in this country. I want to thank Liz Kendall for her friendship during this campaign, for the way we've managed to have some moderately different opinions on a number of issues, but we've managed to maintain a very good friendship. And Liz is somebody that I admire because she absolutely stands up for what she believes in, whether it's easy, simple or popular, or uneasy, not simple or popular. So Liz, thank you very much. During this amazing 3 months, our party has changed. We've grown enormously. We've grown enormously because of the hopes of so many ordinary people for a different Britain, a better Britain, a more equal Britain, a more decent Britain. They're fed up with the inequality, the injustice, the unnecessary poverty. All those issues have brought people in a spirit of hope and optimism. So I say to the new members of the party, or those that have joined in as registered supporters or affiliated supporters, welcome. Welcome to our party. Welcome to our movement. I am fed up with the social cleansing of London by this Tory government and its policies. We need a Labour mayor. We need a Labour mayor in London who can ensure we do house everyone in London. We do end the sky-high rents. We do end the insecurity of those living in the private rented sector. We need a Labour mayor to bring that about in this wonderful great city of London. And Sadiq's the man to do it.
Mr. Corbyn's first assignment as Labour Party leader was an address at a refugee rally in London where he condemned the UK government policy as anti-people.
We are all humans. We all have a sense of decency and humanity and reaching out to others. And I am shocked beyond appalled at the way so many and so much of our media over so long endlessly describe desperate people in desperate situations as the problem. Desperate people in desperate situations as people who are trying to travel or move illegally. Those desperate people in desperate situations are all over the world. There are more of them now than at any time ever in the recorded history of this planet. They are victims of war, they're victims of environmental degradation, they're victims of poverty, they're victims of human rights abuses all over the world. We have a responsibility as one of many countries that signed the 1951 Geneva Convention on the right to asylum. We are a country that is a member, obviously, of the UN, but also of the Refugee Council and the Human Rights Council. And we therefore have a responsibility to ensure those people are properly cared for and properly supported. And so I think it's quite incredible what has happened across Europe in the past few weeks. Suddenly, a lot of politicians have rediscovered their principles of humanity. They've rediscovered that you don't need to walk in fear of the far right and the racists. There is actually a popular uprising in favour of decency and humanity in our society.
In a swift reaction to Corbyn's election, the government declared Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn as a threat to national security.
This is a very serious moment for our country. This election shows that Labour is now a serious risk to our national security, to our economic security, and to the security of your family. This election shows that Labour now poses a very serious risk to our security, our national security, because they would undermine our defences, to our economic security, because there'll be taxes on jobs, taxes on earnings, and more borrowing, and to the security of every family. That would affect all working people. This government is serious about keeping Britain safe, but this election shows that Labour are now putting that at risk. They're a risk to our national security, they would undermine our defences, but more than that, they're a risk to our economic security. They would pile taxes on jobs and earnings, and that will affect all working people.
Is Labour under Jeremy Corbyn truly a threat to Britain or a threat to the Conservative-led government? What is the future of Labour under Jeremy Corbyn? Would he ever become a Prime Minister? Britain watches as situation unfolds ahead of 2020 election, just as Mr. Corbyn puts his shadow cabinet together to wrestle power from the Conservative-led government.
Coming through, sorry! The Tories have used the economic crisis of 2008 to impose a terrible burden on the poorest people in this country. Those that have seen their wages frozen or cut, those that can't afford to even sustain themselves properly, those that rely on food banks to get by. It's not right, it's not necessary, and it's got to change. We need an economic strategy that improves people's lives, that expands our economy, that reaches out to care for everybody. You can't do that if at the same time you do nothing about grotesque levels of inequality within our society. We need to develop an economic policy that deals with those issues. And so our party is about justice, is about democracy, it is about the great traditions we walk on. Those that founded our party and our movement, those that stood up for human rights and justice, the right for women to vote, the right for others to vote. We stand here today because of their work. But we go forward now as a movement and a party, bigger than we've ever been for a very, very long time, stronger than we've ever been for a very long time, more determined than we've been for a very long time, to show to everyone that the objectives of our party are intact. Our passion is intact. Our demand for humanity is intact. And we as a party are going to reach out to everyone in this country to take us on that journey together, so no one is left on the side. Everyone has a decent chance in life. and a decent place within our society. That's what Labour was brought about to achieve. That is what we're going to achieve. This election campaign is, as we see here, about shaping our future. Our party is going to, I hope, become more inclusive, more involved, more democratic, and we're going to shape the future of everyone in this country in a way that I think will be remembered as something that is good for everyone, that brings about the justice that we all crave, and that is what brought us into this wonderful party and this wonderful movement ourselves. I say thank you to everyone for all their support, friendship and comradeship during this election process. And I say thank you in advance to us all working together to achieve great victories, not just electorally for Labour, but emotionally for the whole of our society, to show we don't have to be unequal, it doesn't have to be unfair, poverty isn't inevitable, things can and they will change. Thank you very much.
All right. Welcome back from that report on how Jeremy Corbyn became the leader of the Labour Party after the dismal performance of Labour in the 2015 election that saw the Conservative Party lead the entire race and have a full Conservative-led government. My guest in the studio today is Sam Foxman. Sam, thank you so much for being part of the program today.
Thanks for having me.
Where do we start from? Let's start from where Jeremy Corbyn finished that report that he said poverty is inevitable, poverty can be avoided, and that Labour Party is set to ensure that inequality is removed. Is that possible? And what is the level of poverty that UK has now? Well, can inequality be removed at all? Let's start from poverty to inequality.
Well, I think that to have it as a guiding principle is certainly not an unsound position to adopt. It's much better, I would suggest, for a government to be opposed to inequality than for it to be in favour of it. I think the point that Jeremy Corbyn seems to have stressed quite a bit is actually in relation to poverty, making the argument that there is no excuse for a country and economy as developed as the economy of the United Kingdom. There's no excuse for that country to have any significant degree of real poverty, because it should have the resources to eradicate, to effectively eradicate poverty. And there is an extent to which that's true. I think it's very difficult to construct a policy that always will capture every possible case, but certainly in principle, there is no good reason for people to live in such a way that causes them to rely on food banks, for example. But then things like food banks and, to sort of bring this back around to inequality and wage inequality and things of that sort. Things like that they are not necessarily significantly worse because of the policies of the Conservative government that was in office between 2010 and 2015. Inequality was never particularly significant on the agenda of the last Labour government, for example, or the 1997 to 2010 government. And it certainly wasn't on the agenda with the Conservative governments prior to that. So what progress there has been over the last 20, 30 years, maybe longer, has been quite minimal in terms of dealing with inequality directly. There have been a number of things which have happened, often not as a result of policy or around policy priorities, like enormous increases in funding to the National Health Service under the last Labour government, significant increases in education spending, and a change to the way that and changes to the way that the economy is structured, such that there are in terms of who does or doesn't make money, what jobs do or don't make money, what assets are valued in what way. Those changes have happened. They have had an effect on inequality, causing it to both go up and go down at various different times. But there hasn't really been a consistent government position on things, on directly dealing with the issue of inequality. There has been some work on poverty, and as I say, there's been a sort of vicarious effect on inequality through things like the health service and education under the last last Labour government. But yeah, it is a sound set of aspirations for the leader of Britain's leading left-wing political party.
Okay, now, Sam, let's look at how Jeremy Corbyn actually emerged as Labour leader. There were a few of them in that report. We are Andy Burnham, who got 68 MPs nominating him. He had the highest nomination of Labour MPs. And today in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet, and Burnham is the shadow Home Secretary, meaning he, in his capacity, he might be pulling those 68 MPs along with him to the Jeremy Corbyn support. Yeah, and then followed by Viet Cooper, who have 59 nominations, and then Liz Kendall, who had the least, 41, and Jeremy Corbyn had the least MP nomination. He was the least supported by MPs, but he came out with a massive, very, very massive Labour support with 59.9%, almost 60% votes for him to become the Labour leader. Prior to that, Tony Blair did say Labour will become unelectable if Jeremy Corbyn wins. Gordon Brown did say the same thing.
Yeah.
But with 59.9, almost 60% of Labour votes going to Jeremy Corbyn, what went wrong? Should we say Labour decided not to follow the advice of Gordon Brown and Tony Blair? Why is such a massive confidence reposed in Jeremy Corbyn, despite advice from previous Prime Minister from Labour?
Well, Tony Blair was certainly electable, but he's no longer particularly close, I don't think, to the core of what most Labour Party members believe. And I think that they take the advice of Tony Blair with something of a pinch of salt. Gordon Brown and Ed Miliband, who are both closer to a sort of Labour identity, aren't really in a position to lecture anyone on being unable to win an election with I mean, Labour hasn't had an electable leader who was
after Tony Blair.
I mean, he's the only one to have demonstrated his electability. But that all rather presupposes that the electability of Tony Blair was a question of policy. And I don't think it is particularly. I mean, I think there's an extent to which policy matters, but I think the bigger issue in 1997 was that there was this sort of intellectually bankrupt Conservative Party that had been just sort of plodding along, running the country with these sort of notoriously banal policies about things like cones on the side of the road. And the Labour leadership, with Tony Blair and Gordon Brown and a whole host of other characters who many of whom were still around in 2010, they had this message of optimism and a message of hope, and things can only get better. And there's a significant extent to which that same message is the sort of fundamental underlying message of the Corbyn campaign. It's this idea that what we have been given previously, the way we have been served previously, has not been good enough, and we will be better, we will be smarter. So I think there's an extent to which the reason for the overwhelming victory doesn't necessarily come from a place of it's not a policy calculation. It's a calculation based on it's a judgment of the heart. But then all elections ultimately are judgments of the heart. So I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. The other thing I'd say is that, talking about his support in the parliamentary party, where obviously policy has a sort of slightly more important role, but the most important thing for almost all parliamentarians is themselves. That's a sort of fundamental characteristic of people, but also particularly of politicians, and what they are looking to do is what is best for them. So you say, oh, well, Andy Burnham got 68
MPs,
68 nominations, and Jeremy Corbyn at the other end of the scale only got through because of a few, quite a reasonable amount of his support came from people who did not support him or his positions or his aspiration to lead the Labour Party, but they supported the idea that there should be a broader debate. So not even those few people who did support him, he can't even necessarily count on all of those, because some of them supported him for reasons of principle rather than for reasons of policy or personality. The thing, though, when you're thinking about why people have chosen to nominate who they've chosen to nominate, or how they've reached the kind of how they've positioned themselves within the Labour Party, is that there is a personal consideration for every person who makes those decisions. So it seems to me more than likely that because Andy Burnham was considered the front runner for the Labour leadership, he was considered the person most likely to win the Labour leadership, that a number of his nominations came from people who would have sought preferment to a ministerial appointment under a Burnham regime. So it's a sort of early display of loyalty to the sort of supposed new leader. So that those nominations are not necessarily exclusively a reflection of the strength of the party's feeling about it, and they don't necessarily give away any long-term loyalty. So it's hard to judge, I think, at this point, how difficult the question of managing the parliamentary party is going to be for Jeremy Corbyn.
Okay.
I think, actually, just to round that out, I think there'll be a huge amount of media and political and party attention on how he performs tomorrow at Prime Minister's Questions, because I think a good performance could really galvanise his support and get the party to kind of rally behind it. So tomorrow is going to be his first fire test. I think it's a big test, especially for the parliamentary party. I think it's the kind of thing that, if he doesn't do well at Prime Minister's Questions, the nation will not remember. The Conservatives will not remember. No one will care. The party, the members will not remember. But his parliamentary colleagues might start. That's when you might start to see sort of discontent emerging.
It's going to be his first time tomorrow at the Prime Minister's Question.
Yeah.
So he might be overwhelmed initially.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be in a lot of. I think it's very difficult for him to
hold out his own gun tomorrow.
Well, yes. I mean, having not really had an opportunity to sit down with his new cabinet or work out what he wants Labour's policy positions to be, it's known that he has set out a number of policy positions on NATO, on the economy,
nationalisation of key
on a number of things with which his colleagues have, on deficit reduction, on a number of things with which his colleagues have disagreed. On a number of things which Labour were not elected on because they weren't in their 2015 manifesto. So there are a number of points of disagreement, and I can't help but think that it's going to be difficult for Jeremy Corbyn to make a point if David Cameron can pick away at these points of difference, which will be in areas where Jeremy Corbyn hasn't yet had an opportunity to
review research,
to review, to settle on a policy position, and to exert his authority as leader in that area.
Why do you think Labour decided to go for Jeremy Corbyn, knowing that he's pro-socialist, anti-monarchy? Probably it's changed now. He's is to the left, real far to the left. Is it to appeal to the conscience of Labour members that decided to go for the SNP in Scotland, that felt Labour under Ed Miliband wasn't left enough?
I don't think that when any political party reaches a judgment about who it wants to have as its next leader, I don't think it's reaching that judgment based on considerations about what the outside world thinks. I think a party generally doesn't...
But if you're considering if you're having a leader, you want to appeal to those Labour voters that deserted you and went to vote for other parties. Something must have gone wrong at some point, especially in Scotland, where Labour was wiped out.
Certainly, a lot has gone wrong for the Labour Party in the last, really since 2003, since the Iraq War. A lot has gone wrong for Labour in terms of how it positions itself and the support that it gets and how it communicates, which is one of the problems with the three candidates who were not Jeremy Corbyn. But the point about Corbyn as a figure for the Labour Party to vote for, I think that comes from, like I say, it's a message of hope. It's a belief and faith that causes them to come to this judgment. But I also think a lot of it comes down to there is a widespread and not incorrect school of thought that says a lot of the problem that Labour had at the last general election was a failure to properly articulate its economic strategy and its economic position. And it bought too much, the argument goes, it bought too much into the conservative narrative that austerity is good. And if a strong, positive, left-wing, anti-austerity economic argument could have been made,
which Ed Miliband never did.
Which Ed Miliband,
he was
Ed
never
Miliband
really that left.
Never even began to think about trying to do that, I don't think. But that's the position that's why a lot of the Scots voted for
SNP.
The SNP. It's why there was a reasonable amount of support for the Green Party. It suggested that this is why a lot of people, weirdly, I know, but this is why a lot of people, especially in the north, went from Labour to UKIP, because they felt that there was a more real alternative in the UK Independence Party.
Okay, all right. We're still talking about the future of Labour Party under the current leadership of Labour, led by Jeremy Corbyn, who in the greater part of his career as a member of parliament has been on the backbench. Within this period, well over 35 years, he's practically, report says, opposed almost every legislation, even from his own government as well. However, now he's found himself at the front bench as Labour leader. We'll continue with this. Let's go on a very short break. You might be able to call into the studio and have your say on Labour Party and its future under Jeremy Corbyn. We'll be back after this break.
808-5789, where you'll be sure of expertise, competitive pricing and first-class service. Visit www.keywrite.co.uk. Telephone 0208-808-5789. Keywrite, the right key for your property investment.
In all my years of flying internationally on Arik Air, I have never seen any president of Nigeria, current or past, any governor, current or past, any minister, current or past, including the Minister of Aviation. Neither have I seen any member of the National Assembly, current or past, on board the aircraft. Now, there is a clamor for a national carrier. Yet Nigerians who have invested huge sums of money providing aircrafts on international routes, are never patronized by the people who advocate patriotism, nationalism, and commitment to fellow Nigerians. And so I wonder, when we get this national carrier everybody's asking for, who will patronize it? Is it the traders and market women, or the people who are advocating that we set up a national carrier? I urge politicians and leaders of Nigeria to practice what they preach. In my humble opinion, unless we act like patriotic Nigerians and not as hypocrites, we will not find upper-class Nigerians fly our own airlines. I am Ben Murray Bruce, and I just want to make common sense.
Pret Media Comes presents the London premiere of Omo Chairman.
Láti gbogbo ọjọ́ ìwọ kan sọ fún mi kó máa lọ. Well, I have to go.
Ó ti dé stage tí oníkálukú máa láti jẹ́ orúkọ fada ẹ̀ ní.
Fọlákẹ́ ti lóyún.
Showing at the Lighthouse Camberwell on the 18th of September 2015.
Àwọn senior sister sẹ́ńlé tèmi pẹ̀lú wọn jẹ́ ọjọ́ ìbí ẹgbẹ́ àwọn ni wèrè ń jà lórí wọn.
Eyín tí ajá fi ń bá ọmọ ẹ̀ ṣeré òun ló máa fi ń bùjá. Tẹ́gùn bá tó egun èyí ẹja ká ni. Eégún nìyẹn èmi wá jẹ́ bí eégún.
Red carpet 7 p.m. Screening starts at 9:30 p.m. No African time.
Mo kàn fún ní notice péré ni pé ọjọ́ báyìí ń bọ̀ wá pa.
Báwo notice pa? Madam abẹ́yìn lẹ plan ẹ̀ ni.
I beg your pardon. Kòtò wá wo kòkó á sọ.
Tickets standards £20, VIP £40.
To economy, business, technology, the totality of what makes man is what we bring to you here on this bunch. We give you the information that you need, from business to economy, to politics, to technology. And that's what we do here on this bunch, from the beginning to the end. And that is why we are here. Keep watching this bunch from Ben Television. And today, I'll be your host.
All right, welcome back, and the program is still News Punch, coming to you live from Ben Television, and my name is Tony Alabi. We're looking at the future of Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn. You can call into the studios. The number to call is 020-8808-0693. Let's have your opinion. Do you think Labour is going to be electable under Jeremy Corbyn? Do you think it's far too left for the party and for this season and for this time? Do you think Britain is ready for an extremely left-wing, pro-socialist party or leader? All right, I see I have my guest in the studio, Sam Foxman, who's reviewing the situation with me. Sam, the first assignment Jeremy Corbyn embarked on immediately after being elected leader was to attend a rally put together to create a voice and a support for refugees. Mm-hmm. What does that say about him?
Well, I assume he was going to be there either way. I think it says that he is a politician for whom it's clear, I think, looking at his voting and speaking record, that two of the particularly important things to him are the economy and foreign policy. And I think those are the two sort of planks of what his offering could be, or what marks him out as being particularly different. I think that going to a rally of this sort suggests that, first of all, he's a man of his convictions, though, you know, and that he wants to sort of stay close to those kind of organic human movements that have kind of defined his career in some ways. You know, he was involved in anti-nuclear demonstrations, and he was involved with the Stop the War Coalition. I think he's the national chair, I think, now, of the Stop the War Coalition. So he's had a
is very well known with protest.
Well, he has a strong background affiliation there, but I don't think that necessarily this rally would be characterised as a protest. Obviously, it's not in favour of British government policy, but it's essentially trying to present a show of support for a more compassionate foreign policy or humanitarian migration policy.
What will probably determine the 2020 victory for any party will be the mood of Britain. Can you sum up the current mood of Britain, both on economic and on foreign policy immigration?
Well, it's very hard to say, isn't it? Polls suggest that on migration, the country is broadly split, with a slight majority being generally opposed to migration and or greater migration. But I think it's a very difficult...
That'll be a minus for Jeremy Corbyn, who is in favour of migration.
Well, I'm not in a position to speak for Jeremy Corbyn and his policies. I think that what he has demonstrated is that he's in favour of allowing more refugees to come here. Whether that necessarily sets him out as being pro-immigration, he's in favour of this immigration in order to resolve a humanitarian crisis. That is not necessarily the same as being generally in principle in favour of immigration, though one suspects that very likely he is in favour of more liberal migration policies. The left tend to be.
On economy?
But the thing that I was going to say about the migration stuff and the migration stuff specifically is that that's not too far out of step with British public opinion. I think some of the foreign policy stuff is relatively more out of step with British public opinion, though a lot of it again is very much with British public opinion. There is a strong there's a strong division in the country about how to use Britain's military strength. Should it be something that is not used ever? Should there be foreign interventions to for example, help bring down Gaddafi in Libya, or airstrikes on ISIS in Iraq or Syria? Should those things happen? I think that the Corbyn position would be that they shouldn't. On the economy, I think that probably Labour is out of step, or Jeremy Corbyn and the anti-austerity movement are out of step with the general public.
Really?
At the moment. But that's because that argument has not been made by anyone. No credible person, no credible mainstream political figure has made an anti-austerity argument up to this point. But with 5 years to make an argument, and 5 years to formulate a policy, and 5 years in which the economic circumstances of Britain could completely change, I think that's an argument that can be won. That's a position that can be defended.
While government was reacting to Jeremy's election, the Secretary for the defense head, Philip Hammond, did say that the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn has now become a threat to national security. Because Jeremy Corbyn was opposed to nuclear war, opposed to Trident, and use of other military might of Britain. And so the government did believe that Labour is now a threat to national security as we head in that report. Would you agree with Philip Hammond?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's an absurd position, isn't it? But it's a hyperbolic position. I mean, absurd is quite strong, but it's a hyperbolic position. He's essentially saying that the conservative foreign policies and the conservative defence policies are better for Britain's long-term interests in his view, which isn't that surprising, because they're coming from different political parties and from very different political traditions when it comes to the role of the military. So I don't think it's fair to say that the leader of a political party is a threat to the security of Britain. But I think that sort of attack is potentially quite a dangerous one, and I think that as with a lot of these kind of questions, what has happened with Jeremy Corbyn is that no one was taking him particularly seriously as a leadership contender. And then all of a sudden there was this great outpouring of support for him among Labour, and then he was the front runner and now he's the leader. And in all that time, he's made speeches and made arguments, but there hasn't been a huge amount of setting out exactly what, broadly, Jeremy Corbyn's vision of Labour is in favour of. And I think that, so now what is happening is that having been elected, his record of speaking and his record of voting and his record of attending events
will be dug out.
Well, it's all being dug out. and in the process of being dug out, they're saying, well, what... He once said that he didn't think that Britain should be in NATO. Does he now believe it? Whether he does or doesn't now believe it, does he think that Labour Party policy should be that Britain should leave NATO? So there's a whole sort of range of things, especially in that area with Israel-Palestine, with Northern Ireland, with a whole range of, with the European Union, with NATO, a whole range of things that
he said in the past.
That he has said in the past, or that he's been adjacent to in the past, or associated with in some way. And
they will come hunting him now. Do you think they will come after him now?
No, I don't think so. I just think that there needs to be clarity. And there needs to be clarity
a very smart David Cameron has a way of getting back at people. For instance, the issue of Britain being in NATO, we'll come back to him. Look,
but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to come. If he decides clearly that the position of his Labour Party is that Britain should remain in NATO, then that will be the issue. That will be the issue essentially resolved. Jeremy Corbyn, I think, will there will be a degree of personal attack, but there's a limit. There's a limit to how far that can be done. I think the other thing that that we haven't really discussed in this is the Labour Party are not the only participants in the 2020 general election. The Conservative Party are going to be there as well, presumably, and so what situation
But David Cameron may not be there.
Well, David Cameron has said he doesn't want to be there.
Step down.
So which one...
We don't know who's going to be the leader.
And none of them are very popular.
Probably Chancellor?
Boris Johnson, George Osborne, maybe. But they're not massively popular figures. There's also going to be a tendency within the party, I'd have thought, within the Conservative Party, to want to, in response to Jeremy Corbyn...
He might probably change his mind.
David Cameron?
Yeah.
He might do. I don't know. I mean...
Of course, you keep leaders changing his mind. He said he wasn't stepping down, eventually he said, I'm coming back.
But he's just a politician. David Cameron will have been running Britain, will have been Prime Minister of the United Kingdom for 10 years come the next election. And having any job like that for 10 years, I mean, you look at Obama or Tony Blair and Bill Clinton, and you see how being in government for that length of time, being that senior in government for that length of time, the effect that has on you. So I don't know that he'll want to carry on. He'll have been leader of his party for 15 years or so. He'll have done as long, basically, as Tony Blair. So he may go.
Okay, he may go. All right. I think we still have an opportunity for, if you're watching this program, you feel you want to be part of the program, let's just have your opinion about Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party. Do you think he can stand the smartness of someone like David Cameron, who's been in power, with very swift in words and very firm in his position and know how to put his position very forward? And do you think Labour is going to become electable in the next election? That's what we're looking at. In a couple of minutes we'll be calling on the show. But you can still call into the studio or join us on Twitter at Tunde C3. You can join us, follow us, and be part of the discussion on our Twitter handle at Tunde C3 is our Twitter handle. Then let's keep talking the future of Labour under Jeremy Corbyn. Okay, as we count down now, Sam, do we see Jeremy Corbyn becoming a prime minister? Does he have the characteristics? One of the things against Ed Miliband was that he does not possess, they say he did not possess the characteristics of a prime minister. So in terms of personality rating, he was rated far below David Cameron. Do you think Jeremy Corbyn could suffer the same fate?
Well, he could do, but it's very, like I say, at this stage, it's
age is on his side. Ed Miliband was younger. People were of the opinion he had very little experience. Unlike Jeremy Corbyn.
The other thing is, if you look at the three candidates that Jeremy Corbyn has beaten for the Labour leadership, we're kind of just after the high point of this whole army of politicians, especially Labour politicians, but also to a lesser extent, especially the newer intake of Conservative politicians, who they speak a language of a sort of management language that ordinary people don't really connect with. So I think that there's an extent to which Jeremy Corbyn represents a real personality, a real human being, and that may well be electable.
Okay, all right. We're getting a couple of tweets from our Twitter handle saying Jeremy Corbyn is we should give Labour time to settle down with Jeremy Corbyn. Another tweet saying Jeremy Corbyn with his policy could be considered as too far left. And that one says, we're not sure if he is able to stand David Cameron. Let's take on that. Will he be able to stand David Cameron?
What do you mean by that?
In terms of Prime Minister's questions?
You mean sort of face up to him?
Yes.
David Cameron is and has always been an exceptionally accomplished
orator,
speaker, especially at Prime Minister's questions. He's always been very, very good at it. So I think it would be difficult for whoever comes into it. I think that with something like Prime Minister's questions, very often what you're dealing with is an atmosphere and a vibe rather than a sort of reality of what you're saying. So it doesn't really matter how good or how bad you are. If you've got your party united behind you, you're going to win. And if you've got your party disunited behind you, you're going to lose. You're going to look like an idiot. So especially if the other guy can pick at those divisions. And so I think if Jeremy Corbyn can unite the party, which he has a real opportunity to do, there's a huge opportunity here for Labour to engage with its membership more, and an opportunity to create a dialogue which I think could be really good. And if the Conservative Party lurches to the right and starts to break apart into different factions supporting different potential leaders, then yeah, maybe he could be Prime Minister.
Okay, all right. Maybe Jeremy Corbyn could be Prime Minister and Labour could find itself in government come 2020. But as we head in that report, Britain is watching and time will tell what the future holds for Labour Party. My name is Tunde Alabi. It's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Sam, thank you for coming on the program all the way from Kingston. It's a pleasure having you on the show tonight.
Thanks, Tunde.
All right, I'll see you again on another program. Do have a very good night. Bye.
From business to economy to politics to technology. And that's all we do.